Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to call the Washoe County Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, March 7th to order. And if we could get a roll call for determination of quorum, please.
Sarah Safilicek,
Here.
Francine Donchik,
Here.
Michael Flick, Daniel Lazareski,
Here.
Kate Nelson,
Here.
Rob Pierce,
Here.
Pat Phillips.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Linda. Mr. Flick, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move the approval of the agenda up to the next item. And the reason is that two of the items on the agenda are being pulled and will be rescheduled till next month. And by doing this, by letting you know, anybody that's here for public comment will be able to speak under public comment, so that when we get to those items, you can stay. We won't be discussing them, okay? So the two items that are being pulled tonight, requested by the applicants, are item 8B, Master Plan Amendment Case WMPA 23-0001, and Regulatory Zone Amendment Case number WRZA 23-0001, Village Green. It's the first one. Second one being pulled is item 9C, Master Plan Amendment Case number WMPA 23-0002.
Madam Chair, I believe that's 10.
Oh, 10C, that's right. I corrected. I apologize. 10C. 10B and 10C. And 10C, again, is the Master Plan Amendment Case number WMPA 23-0002. And Regulatory Zone Amendment Case number WRZA 23-002, Franktown Road. With those two changes, I'd like to request a motion for approval for tonight's agenda.
Commissioner Lazareski, a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Do we have a second?
Commissioner Phillips, second.
All right, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So if we could have the ethics law, please, Mr. Gustafson.
No.
Nope.
There we go. Commissioners are reminded that if with respect to any matter or any person coming before the commission today, number one, you've received a gift or loan. Number two, you have a pecuniary interest. Number three, you have a commitment in a private capacity, such as a family, employment, business, or similar relationship. Or number four, if you've provided representation or counseling before an agency to a person or entity for compensation within the last year on a matter that's being considered here today, please remember to disclose that gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation at the time the matter is being considered. And furthermore, please remember to abstain from deliberation or voting on the matter if it's clear that the gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation would materially affect the independence of judgment of a reasonable person. Commissioners are also reminded that under the Planning Commission rules, if you've had any contact outside this meeting with any persons interested in a matter coming before the commission today, please disclose the nature of that contact at this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gustafson. Secretary Lloyd, if we could have the appeals procedure, please.
Sure. Most decisions rendered by the Planning Commission are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Planning Commission and you qualify as an aggrieved person or party, you may appeal in writing within 10 calendar days from the date the decision being appealed is reduced to writing, filed with the Secretary of the Planning Commission, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and application fee.
Thank you, Secretary Lloyd. We are now moving on to public comment. Comment heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the agenda. However, action may not be taken on any matter raised during this public comment period until the matter is specifically listed on the agenda as an item. Comments are to be made to the Planning Commission as a whole. Do we have any public comments either in chambers or via Zoom at this time?
We have no public comment in chambers, but I had one hand in Zoom. Nazia Hosseini, if you would like to make a public comment, please unmute and state your name for the record.
Hi, sorry, I'm just listening in.
We have no further public comment.
All right, if there's no public comment in chambers or via Zoom, we will close public comment at this time and move on to item 7, approval of the February 7th, 2023 draft minutes. Do we have a motion, ladies and gentlemen?
Commissioner Phillips, I move we accept the meeting minutes of February 7.
Thank you, Commissioner Phillips. Do we have a second?
This is Rob. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a first and a second. Are there any amendments or corrections? Hearing none. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Abstain.
Oh, and we have one abstain. Commissioner Flick, thank you. We are moving on to item 8A, which, ladies and gentlemen, at this point is a consent item.
No.
Oh, wait, no, that's not the consent. Sorry, 9. Never mind, I got my notes wrong. I apologize. 9 would be the consent. We're moving on to item 8A, and we've been asked to give staff 20 minutes to present tonight. So, Mr. Young? Boy, if I played notes all the time.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Eric Young from the Planning Program and Community Services Department. We're pretty happy tonight to be here to give you this update on the Envision Washoe 2040 project, or the update of the Washoe County Master Plan. I've got a staff report for you tonight, produced by a new member of the team. You may not be hearing from her tonight, but I want to make sure you know that she put in an awful lot of work for you tonight on this staff report, Kat Oakley. We also have tonight a member of our consulting team to do a presentation for you that's very similar to some of the things the advisory committees have been seeing, and it's an excellent way to get updated on where we are. It'll provide some sense of what the schedule is, how we have finally got to a point of having a draft to begin to look at, the things we're going to ask people to help us look at, and then some upcoming public engagement that we have planned for the very end of this month, when all of the consultants will be actually coming into town, and we'll be able to spend some time out in the community doing some significant public outreach from the 27th through the 31st. Have you found Melissa? Have you found her in the? Great, fantastic. So I'm going to introduce Melissa Ruth for you tonight, who is, you hear me talk about the consultant a lot. Pretty much every time we come forward, we talk about the what the consultant team and the county team have been able to do, where we are, but you don't get to hear from them directly much. So we're kind of excited to have her here for you tonight to go through, for you to be able to interact with her, and then remember that we'll have the entire consulting team here at the end of March for everybody to be able to engage with. Before I completely turn over to you, I want to remind you that we have set up an opportunity for you to engage with us individually. A few of you have taken advantage of that a couple of times. Some of you haven't yet taken advantage of it yet. It's always open. You can go onto the Outlook calendar, set up a meeting, and come in individually with any questions you have, concerns, things you're hearing, something that you've read that you need more information on, you can set up those meetings, come and talk to us every day if that's what you need to feel engaged. It's really important for us that you have this opportunity to reach out to us anytime that you have a question or when you're looking through these drafts that we're beginning to develop now. So Melissa, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to turn it over to you and let you get started on the presentation for us, and then we'll be ready to answer your questions and get towards how you feel about where we are. Thank you.
Alyssa, please state your name for the record and unmute. Thank you.
I'm Melissa Ruth, part of the Logan Simpson Consulting team. As Eric mentioned, I have a short presentation. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Not at this time.
Try again.
All right.
How about now?
We
Yes,
are
you're
now.
Okay, great. So there's just 4 items I wanted to present to you all today. A quick update on the schedule, an update on the Envision Washoe 2040 working draft, the area plans and where we're going with those, and then ending with the next steps and highlighting a little bit more of that outreach that we're doing at the end of March. So schedule-wise, this is where we're at. We are firmly in March now. So we're working on area plan revisions, refining the first 2 chapters of the document that we worked with the steering committee, the technical advisory committee, and the community advisory committee with. And then starting some of the land use code assessment pieces, which is really pulling the land use code language that is within the master plan and the area plans into a separate document so we can start noting in the code where those need to go, so that we don't lose them. Things like specific lighting standards or specific uses, application requirements, those sorts of things that are currently in the master plan kind of scattered throughout are what we're pulling out to be recommended to put into the development code. So we'll be working on those 2 items over the next couple of months, meeting back with the steering committee and the technical advisory committee and community advisory committees 2 more times before we come out with a full draft plan targeted for July. And when we come out with that full draft plan, we'll do another round of in-person public engagement events. And that timeline is up on the website if you want to look at it again. We do try to keep it updated. So for the draft plan structure, I think you've seen this graphic before, but we are taking the 6 elements, existing elements of the plan, pulling out the detailed information and standards like I mentioned, and those are going into the development code. The vision, goals, policies, and actions are what we're retaining in the Envision Washoe 2040 plan. And it'll come out in 3 chapters. So we'll have chapter 1, which is the foundation. That'll be the background, the history of the county, history of the planning areas, all of the process that we're doing for this Envision Washoe 2040 plan, as well as some information on the plan itself, and its interaction with other adopted county and regional plans. Chapter 2 is the vision. So it will have the vision statement as well as revised elements with goals and policies. And then the planning areas will be the second half of that chapter. So we'll start with the countywide elements, and then we'll go into the planning areas, which we are working on revising as well. And then last but not least is chapter 3, which is the implementation chapter. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's all of your action items. So all of the specific additional plans that need to be conducted, additional studies, land use code updates, other action items for the county in order to implement the plan. That's where those will live. And this is a pretty typical structure for a comprehensive plan or master plan document. So I think I went through this. So chapter 1 is the foundation. It's the connection to the other plans. It's kind of the background information of the document as well as the process. So we'll talk about all of the engagement that we've done, the numbers, kind of the timeline for the project. All of that information will be in this chapter. And then chapter 2 is the vision. So we shuffled the 6 elements that we'll be touching on that'll still meet state statute. And but tiering from specifically the regional plan. So we'll have a population growth element, regional form and coordination, natural resources, conservation, open space, a public facilities and services element, and then land use and transportation will be their own elements. And within each of those elements, there will be an existing conditions section, and then the principles and policies associated with that element. So similar to the way that the structured now, but more condensed. So the existing conditions are, I want to say they're about 4 to 5 pages per element. I think that's about where they're at. And then the principles and policies will have an introduction at the beginning of that section to talk about the intent of the principles and policies, what the overall kind of county goal is for those statements. There will be a key indicator, so the metrics that the county will track to ensure that you're meeting these principles and policies, and then links to the relevant plans that are important for each of the sections. So for this example, population growth, we've linked the Truckee Meadows Regional Plan and then the regional strategy for housing affordability. That's just 2 of the documents that are important for this section, but we'll build those out as we continue to refine this section. And then last but not least is the actual text of the principles and policies. So these have been refined from the existing text of the master plan. We've brought in some additional principles and policies based off of feedback and community engagement that we've had, as well as the additional plans that I've mentioned that are either other county adopted plans or regional plans. We've brought in language from those, and you'll see that, I can't see my mouse, there it is, with stuff like this where there will be the text that will be bolded and italicized, and then adjacent to it will be an icon that references that plan. In the final document, you'll be able to click on that link or that icon. It'll take you to that section of the plan so you can read additional information. So that cuts down on the actual amount of text that's in the plan and incorporates things by reference more clearly. So as those are updated, you don't have to go in and update your language as well. So principles, policies, and actions are 3 tiers of kind of policy making for the county. The principles are your large expressions of community ideals. They're broad directions, and they establish the future condition toward which the policies are focused. They're also called goals in some documents. We called them principles because they are things by which the county will continue to kind of live by, whereas goals are generally seen as something to achieve and move on from, whereas these might not be achieved and moved on from. They're going to be something that's prevalent for, hopefully for quite a while. Policies are the statements that further refine the principles. So they give you a little bit more detail about those principles and guide the course of action by which you're going to achieve those principles. And then the action items are your implementation steps. So they detail what you need to do in order to implement those principles and policies. They generally come in 4 forms, which are development code revisions, capital projects, plans and studies, and additional programs and resources. One of the things that we have spent a lot of time looking at is the themes that we've heard throughout our public engagement efforts. And the 4 things that have come up, I think, in every single meeting, event, questionnaire that we've done is concurrency of infrastructure, housing diversity, outdoor recreation access, and conservation of natural resources. At least 3 of those have come up from pretty much every person we've spoken to. So we brought those in as kind of the overarching direction of where we're trying to go with this plan. So we're trying to achieve those 4 themes. And what that looks like is you'll see next to this principle here, a little river icon, which matches that natural resources and conservation icon from the previous slide. And same with this little bus transit icon, matches that transportation icon. So what that means is those 2 principles are achieving those cross-cutting themes. So not every single thing within each element will have an icon, but the goal is to be achieving these 4 cross-cut or addressing these 4 cross-cutting themes in as many places as possible, because it's what the community has told us that they really want us to do with this plan. So for example, that principle 5 with the river icon is maintaining the rural character of communities in the rural area. That's addressing that natural resources and preservation of open space. And where we're going over the next couple months, I had mentioned the area plans. So we're doing the same thing with the area plans that we did with the elements, where we're taking all of the detailed information and standards out of those and putting that in the development code. So some of the area plans have their own sign code, for example. And that's what we're suggesting we pull into the development code, which is really your regulatory document. The master plan is not intended to be the regulatory document. So any regulatory standards that we have within there, we want to pull those out and put those in a place where you can find them easily and enforce them. The character statements, goals, policies, and actions from the area plans are being carried down into chapter 2. The action items themselves will go in chapter 3. We've gone back and forth as to whether they fit better in chapter 2, better in chapter 3. And that's one of the things we'll bring to the community at the end of March is where do those fit better? For the area plans, currently what we have heard is we did a questionnaire fall of last year where we had folks who wanted to respond to the questionnaire. They chose which area they lived in, and then they answered questions based off of that area. That questionnaire was open for about a month, and we received a total of 571 responses. We did provide the option for folks to select Reno and Sparks. Even though those are outside of the county's planning jurisdiction, we wanted to give those folks an option to provide their input as well to benchmark against some of the other responses we were hearing. And what we found from that questionnaire is that areas generally fit into one of 2 categories. So they fit into a kind of rural lifestyle character area or a suburban character area. And this is based off of where folks within each of the areas put themselves. And then urban, we have Reno and Sparks again as a benchmark for kind of a transect of where the development is within the county. When we brought this graphic to the Community Advisory Committee, they weren't surprised by all of them, but some of the folks were interested to see where each of the areas placed themselves. So again, this is based off of community feedback and aligned pretty closely with what we had anticipated we would see. For the refinements to the character areas, what we're looking at doing is condensing them down into the information that's really important for each character area. So history and existing conditions that focuses really on the history of the area, how development has occurred, key features, and then the land uses within the area. We'll retain the land use map. It's going to end up being a little bit bigger than it's shown in this spread. And then we'll have a refined character statement, which will focus really on the existing vision for the area. So looking 20 years in the future, what does the area want to look like? Not so much where we have been and where we are now, but where do we want to go? So more of a forward-looking statement that tears off of the county vision. There'll be a key issues and opportunity section that talks about some of the opportunities and constraints for each area. So some areas it's going to be more transportation focused, some it's going to be more land use focused, some will be more kind of multimodal focused, things like that will all go in this section. There will also be an existing and desired future conditions snapshot, which looks at those 4 indicators that we talked about and we asked folks about in the questionnaire. So are there recreation opportunities? Where do they fall along a spectrum? Same with scenic resources, access to commercial services, and then multimodal transportation. And last but not least, a section on the principles and policies that are priorities for the area. So we're trying to pull out the repetition where you have the same principle and policy within each area plan. If it was that important for each of the area plans, we pulled those up to a county-wide goal so that these will be specifically for each of the areas and not necessarily applicable for the whole county. Same with the action items. So for action items and next steps, as I said, we are working on refining chapters 1 and 2, specifically looking at the character areas, the planning areas. We do have a photo and idea contest up on the website. So if you have any photos of the areas that you live in, please send your photos either to Eric or to the Envision Washoe 2040 at washoecounty.gov. I would love to use any photos that folks have of each of the areas. Some of the photos that I have are from early February from last year, so they're not the prettiest photos. So anything that you have, I would love to be able to use those in the plan. And we'll give you credit for them in the plan as well. And last but not least, we will be out there, as Eric mentioned, the end of March, the 27th through 30th. We'll be there through the 31st, but we'll be hosting character area workshops Monday night through Thursday night for each of the character areas, and those will be in person. We're looking at doing some additional virtual ones a couple weeks later, but we want to take advantage of the in-person time that we have while we're there. So I believe that's my presentation, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Melissa. That was wonderful. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Melissa or Eric at this time? I do have one question because I'm still very concerned with the amount of public input and how I've heard from some residents that they're not really hearing anything about that there's a survey open or there's an opportunity to put their input in there. So I'm just putting that out there.
Would you like a response, or are you just putting it
Yes,
out there?
please.
Okay. We have, first of all, I want to apologize to anybody who feels like they haven't heard. We want everybody to be engaged and to participate. And I can tell you that in this effort, Envision Washoe 2040, we have never used so many different resources to reach out to people. We have, for the first time, access to the county manager's office that has a very significant public outreach capacity. We use over 7 different email lists. We use every different form of social media that the county has available. We tie into networks of people that we just have through planning who have neighborhood accounts and other local social media to tie into those. We tie into as many homeowners associations that we can. We've tied into Hidden Valley and Pleasant Valley and other homeowners associations. We have significant outreach for every survey, and for the outreach that's coming up at the end of February, we plan an even more robust outreach to people. So keep your ears and your eyes open, because the news is out there that we are doing this. It goes to every cab email list. It's out there. So I apologize to people who haven't been reached. If there is somebody that feels they're not being reached and would like to be engaged, reach out to me personally, and I'll make sure you're engaged. So that's how I would respond.
Madam Chair, I have a question, Jessica.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Phillips speaking. I was looking in the report that was given to us, and you talk about the public engagement and timeline. Mentioned the Citizen Advisory Committee, the Technical Advisory Committee, and the Steering Committee. And I looked on the website and looked for information on these three committees. Is there any way we can get more information on them?
Yes, there is. Are you indicating that you were not able to find the information on the website, or that the information on the website wasn't adequate?
I couldn't find it. I spent probably an hour looking.
Well, I apologize for that. It's there. The agendas and summaries and presentations of every one of those meetings are uploaded and on the website. So everything those committees have done, you can see.
Which section?
It's all there. I believe there's a tab on the website called Public Engagement. We can get you there. If you'd like to give me a call. Do you have it here? What's the name of the tab?
Advisory groups.
There's an advisory groups tab up at the very top. If you click on that advisory groups tab, it will take you to information about all of those, and including the very original stakeholders group, I believe, that we had as well. And if that still doesn't work for you, please let me know. I want you to be able to see all of that.
Thank you, Eric. It's not just us, because we're finding it. It's the public that gets confused when they go to our county website and they don't know where to click, and you got to keep clicking and clicking and clicking. It's not always easy to find, and they get frustrated.
Okay.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Flick.
So we've identified these three classifications. Am I to understand that we're going to have different conditions for each, say, rural versus suburban? Are we going to have different conditions of approval for projects within those areas so that we can maintain the rural in the urban, or how's that going to work?
Commissioner, the exact way that's going to work, we haven't established yet. What we have established is that there is a very strong, as you all know, sense in the unincorporated county of something called rural character, which is not the same as rural land use. And you can see that in the data that we got from the survey. People clearly recognize that they don't live on 40-acre parcels out in Warm Springs. They know that's rural, and that their 1-acre parcel with a donkey on it is not actually rural. They get that. What they're telling us is they have rural character. And so what we are working very diligently to do is to help define that rural character and to find a way to preserve it. Now, we have heard that clearly through all the public engagement and through the advisory committees that were just mentioned. That was clearly stated to us, that there's a difference between rural land use and rural character. So the Truckee Meadows services area that the regional plan has, you know, the line that says where suburban and rural is, that really helps us deal with the difference between rural and not rural. Like if you're outside the services area, you're rural. If you're inside the services area, you may not be rural, but you may want to continue living a lifestyle that feels rural or has rural characteristics. So we have heard that message very strongly, and we're working right now to figure out how to codify that, how to create subdivisions that respect that, and how to respond to that. So we have heard that, but we have not developed a final approach to it.
So it appears then that you're still working with definitions, and when this is all completed, there might be or should be recommended ordinances to make sure that the character of a particular community is maintained. Again, I don't know, I know everything works better on paper than in reality. But if you don't have it on paper, you're never going to get close. So I get that. But I know that we're trying to consolidate a lot of policies and yet differentiate the character of different areas. But when somebody comes in with an application to do something, how do we accommodate the area to maintain it and still have a project that gets approved that's feasible?
Commissioner, through the chair, I think that you have just articulated the exact issue that we're up against, right? And we feel it's very possible to do that, and we feel that this coming round of public engagement out talking to people will help us do that. Nobody wants to shut development down. Everybody wants appropriate development.
Yes.
And so I think we are working very hard in the direction that you're suggesting to try and keep the door open to reasonable, respectful development that matches what people are telling us is their basic character, their historical character. And I'll be very interested to hear your thoughts on how we did. So stay tuned on that.
And then there's always the issue of money. What role does the public sector play in all of this? I mean, we've got streets and public facilities that have to be provided for and maintained in these areas too. That's the other 64,000 portion.
Well, and that's why they're working so hard, because they're going to bring that to us. Commissioners, Kate, anything from you from your end?
No, I just appreciate staff's hard work, and I enjoyed our meeting going over the plan, and it was very informative. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Commissioners in chamber, any further questions?
This is Rob. I got one question. On one of the slides, if I read it correctly, it said envision Washoe 2040 at washoecounty.gov. Is that a correct website address? Because I can't.
.org. It
Okay.
should say .org.
.org, because the only thing I could find is envisionwashoe2040.org. I couldn't find
Yeah.
Envision Washoe 2040 at washoecounty.gov.
Wow, I'm
which
so
was-
glad you caught that, and I apologize for that. It is absolutely .org.
Okay. So,
What you saw on the slide though is the email address if you would like to send photos of your area. That email is Envision
My
Washoe.
email is, the email is
so
.gov.
that's an email. Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Thank
Sorry
you
that
for
wasn't
clarifying
too.
that. Sorry. Okay.
Thank you for the clarification, Melissa. Commissioners, any further? Yes, Commissioners.
Thank you, Chair Donchik. In terms of when we're talking about engagement and such, I mean, I'm on several listservs with Washoe County, but I'm not receiving information about Envision Washoe 2040 through a direct email. So are the commissioners on an email list with regards to meetings, upcoming events and such? Because I'm on the website right now and I don't see the upcoming meetings that are happening the end of the month.
We are still planning those meetings. I have everything except the locations, so I have to nail down the locations before we can send that out. We'll have that nailed down this week, and then they're going to put together the notices and the media, the media reports, they're going to put together the whole package to go out. So, no, that hasn't gone out yet for the end of the month yet.
Okay, and then will commissioners receive invites?
Yes.
For that?
And we'll be doing notices of possible quorum for all of the cabs and the commission and so forth, just in case we run into that.
Yeah. Because when you were saying that you use the county managers listservs and such, and you know, I can't be the only one that's not receiving those communications.
Well, we haven't sent anything out. We haven't had a big thing for a while.
You spoke of, okay, so,
Right.
I mean, I have never received anything, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
But I do thank staff for your the work that you have done, and I will be scheduling my individual meeting, and, you know, some of us have the benefit of going through as being part of the regional plan update, so our input is cogent to the process.
This is Rob. I just wanted to say, Eric, Kat, you guys have done a remarkable job. I've met with both of you a couple times, and from what I've heard, I like what I heard. So you're on the right path, I think.
Thank you too, Melissa.
Commissioners, any further? I too also want to say this is, from what we've gone through and what you're going through to get us to the next step, easier, accessible, where the public can go to it and understand and read it better. It's fantastic. So thank you very much for that. Melissa, thank you for your presentation tonight. So if there's nothing further on this item, we will close this item.
I think that I apologize, Madam Chair. We're hoping for potential action on this with a potential motion. We are very keen for internally for ourselves and for the public to understand that we have your support. If you need us to change direction, if there's anything you'd like us to do differently, we'd like to make sure we have that. But tonight is a night that we were hoping to mark as having a kind of marching orders to go forward or to make any changes that you might need. A good change would be to continue doubling down on those engagement efforts to make sure you know you're contacted and those kind of things. I definitely heard you again tonight. So, but we do have a possible motion for you to consider if you'd be willing to do that. Thank you.
And this is listed for possible action under the planning item, so I would recommend public comment as well.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, is there anyone wishing to make public comment on the Envision 40 presentation or what we're doing here? Sir, if you could come up, and then before you leave, make sure you fill out a paper for the record. Sir, come up, please state your name and everything for us, please.
Okay, so my name is Thor, Thor Simmons, Simmons. I am a resident of Washoe County. I've been here going probably on 4 years, and I've never received any information on Envision Washoe 2040, so I had no idea this was going on. But the gentleman made a comment that people who live in the suburban area of like Spanish Springs, unincorporated Washoe County, want to live a rural lifestyle, but we're not in the rural area. And they don't know how to deal with that. So the question, or the reason I came to comment today was an item that was pulled. So if you don't know how to deal with that now, how are you going to deal with master plan case number WMPA 23001 and regulatory zone amendment case number WRZA 23001, converting commercial property to industrial property? If you don't know how to deal with it in a plan that hasn't been, that's still under formation, how are you going to deal with that when you are going to take public comment on that? Would anybody like to answer?
I'm sorry, this is not a formalized action where we can respond. You're making a public comment, sir.
Okay. It would seem to me that if we don't have a way to deal with it now in a plan that's not even approved yet, then how would you deal with it
Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment under this item at this time? Okay, commissioners, and I will bring it back for,
I do have one public comment on Zoom.
oh, thank you.
Cindy, please unmute and state your full name for the record.
My name is Cindy Shart, SCHARDT. And I noticed when Melissa, I live at 205 Sour Lane, Reno 89521, and that's in Pleasant Valley. I noticed in one of the PowerPoint pictures that Melissa showed us, they had the breakdown of the bus. There was a breakdown of 4 categories, and one of them was outdoor activities or something like that. But there was no like indoor activities. And for a long time here in South Valleys, a whole group of us have been wanting to have a public pool so that the kids can have a place to have activities year round. Like a community center, but at the very least, a public pool would be great. And I would like to know, what category would you categorize that into? And how do we go about promoting this along the way? That's it. That's my question.
Thank you, Cindy.
Ms. Gusman, can we let Mr. Young respond to that, or is that
No, this is public comment.
just, it's still public comments? So, okay, thank you.
You can certainly reach out to her offline.
Okay. So if we could get, Mr. Young, if you could get the contact information from our, there, and then reach back out to her, that would be appreciated. Thank you. So, Commissioner Phillips, you said you had another point at this point?
I thought, in general response, since I'm somewhat new, I look at the purpose of the Planning Commission and the way that we are facing a master plan now at this time is we are responsible for looking for our vision and voting on it as to what this community, this county can be like. But at the same time, as we make these decisions, we have to look back at the previous decisions that we have made that people have to live with. Developments have come in the past. How can we honor both the future, but at the same time remember to honor the past? That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Is there any other questions or input from commissioners at this time? Hearing none, then I will bring it back to what Mr. Young requested, is do we want to make a motion? Commissioner Vilcek, you're prepared to make a motion?
So, because you've left little kind of things at the end of things that can be added in. So I move that the Washoe County Planning Commission support the overall direction of the draft as presented in the staff report and it's at this public meeting. The incorporation of the community-derived cross-cutting themes, implementation of the planned community engagement efforts, and I further move to provide the following additional input into the staff. So taking into consideration my fellow commissioners' comments, and I'll extrapolate, is that as we're looking at what is currently approved on our plans and such, and provide direction as we move forward to better our master plan in terms of what I call those zombie projects that resurface and resurface and resurface. So, thank you.
Thanks. Do we have a second on that motion, ladies and gentlemen?
Commissioner Lazareski, I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Lazareski. We have a motion and a second to approve that motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Ladies and gentlemen, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Eric, Kat, and Melissa. We look forward to the next steps. Okay. Next item on the agenda is item 9, which is a consent item. Secretary Lloyd, if you would, please.
Yes, this is consent item 9A, special use permit case number SW04020 and special use permit case number SP1 594 for the Lockwood Pit for hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a 5-year review of conditions of approval for aggregate operations for SW04-020 and SPW1 594 for Lockwood Pit. The purpose of this review is to examine the conditions of approval to ensure that they are adequately provided for compatibility between aggregate operations and the surrounding land uses in accordance with Washoe County Code 110-33240. The Development Code requires that a date be established for the next scheduled review of conditions of approval. This is, as mentioned, a consent item, and it is under your purview if you wish to have open it up for questions.
So ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we can open up for discussion, or we can say we consent and approve as is. So, commissioners, do you have any questions at this time?
Chair Donchak.
Yes, Commissioner Beaton.
This is Commissioner Nelson. I just have to let you know about a relationship I have with Granite. As my job as the engineering manager for the Incline Village General Improvement District, we currently have 2 large capital improvement projects that Granite is the contractor manager at risk. However, that relationship I do not feel would impede me from providing an independent review of this project that's in front of us tonight.
Ms. Gustafson?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Nelson. So at this point, does anyone want to take it out of consent and discuss, or are you ready to make a motion that we go for? But at this point, is there anyone with public comment either in chambers or on Zoom?
I have no public comment in chambers and no public comment on Zoom.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, if there is no further discussion, can motion to approve?
Sure, I'll make the motion. I move that the Washoe County Planning Commission accepts the 5-year review of the conditions of approval for the aggregate operations for special use permit case numbers SW04-020 and SPW 1-5-94 for Granite Construction Company to ensure the conditions of approval adequately provide for compatibility between the facility's operations and the surrounding land use. The next scheduled review of the conditions of approval to occur not later than March of 2028.
Thank you, Liz Rezzi. Is there a second on this rule?
This is Rob. I'll second it.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstain? Thank you very much. They have their 5-year. Secretary Lloyd, you were going to make a comment on this as a clarification point regarding the new changes for this.
Yeah, you may have noticed that this is fairly unusual. We have essentially been handling these in-house, and at the direction and from our legal counsel, it was recommended that we bring this back to the Planning Commission so that you will be seeing more of these ag pits as consent items on future agendas.
Thank you for that added clarification. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving on to public hearing. Item 10A, Secretary Lloyd, if you would, please.
Yes, this is abandonment case number WAB 230001 for hearing, discussion, and possible action to abandon Washoe County's interest in undeveloped sections of roadway easements that were offered for dedication to Washoe County in document number 3608388, recorded January 3, 2008, but were never accepted by the county. The 38,182 square feet of roadway easements are located on 2 adjacent parcels. And representing Washoe County in this matter is planner Julie Olander.
Julie, before we go along, I just want to ask commissioners if they have any disclosures, either ethics or ex parte, before we go on. Hearing none. Thank you, Julie.
Good evening, Julie Olander with Planning and Building for the record. So this is an abandonment WAB 2301. I'm not moving forward. There we go. And they're asking to abandon the county's interest in the undeveloped section of a roadway easement that was offered for dedication to the county per a document recorded on January 3rd of 2008. They're looking at abandoning about approximately 38,182 square feet of roadway easement. And it's located on 2 parcels. Do I have it? It's on, it's green. Oops, went back. On April 5th, 2022, a special use permit, SUP 22001, and tentative map, WTM 22001 of continuum care of cottages was approved by this board. And that approved included a condition that required that any existing easement, facility, or utility that conflicted with the development shall be relocated, quitclaimed, and/or abandoned as appropriate. And that is what the applicant's now doing. They're trying to get rid of a roadway easement that is conflicting with the development of the site. Okay. And I just want to show the vicinity of where this is at. There's, like I said, there's 2 parcels, and then there's also Washoe County has a parcel that goes down between the 2 of the parcels. So we have one on the right and one on the left of the Washoe County easement, which is part of the Spanish Springs detention basin. And here's showing the easement of one of them. It goes across, I've highlighted in yellow, the portion of the roadway, and then it goes across that Washoe County parcel. And there's just a little wedge of it on the other side. And then there's this parcel, go back, there, thank you, which is sort of a roundabout. And again, they're getting rid of this to accommodate for the development of the site. Next slide. As I said, they're asking for an abandonment of approximately 38,000 square feet, which includes about 28,000 square feet of roadway, and then that 9,000 of the turnaround area. And that, like I said, is going to conflict with the tentative map that was approved and the layout of the proposed residential lots. Next slide. And here's, you can see a little better where the layout of the tentative map that was approved, and you can see that little wedge on the top of the screen where that roundabout is located. So the layout of the lots would conflict with that roadway easement, and that's what they're asking to get abandoned. Next slide. We did notice the abutting properties, and I did not receive any emails or phone calls about the abandonment. Next slide. Various agencies were notified, and any of their comments or conditions are included in their conditions of approval, and the comments are in your staff report. Staff can make the findings, and I offer a possible motion. And I believe the applicant's here. If you have any questions for him, they don't have a presentation, but they're available for any questions.
Thank you, Julie. At this time, since the applicant does not have anything, do we have any public comment, either in chambers or via Zoom for this item? And if you're going to make a comment in chambers, please make sure that you have filled out a form up there so they can keep the record and have your names correctly. But if someone would like to...
Go ahead, approach the podium. Please state your name for the record, and then just see us afterwards. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brian Reiners. I live in one of those homes next to the roadway. I'm showing up here today because my concern is that roadway backs up literally to my back fence. And then right next to that roadway is a drainage ditch. So if it's being abandoned, I don't know if that means that there's development where that road would be, or that it's just not being used. So I'm not 100% sure, which is why I'm here today. Also, that drainage ditch back there, every time it rains or snows pretty heavily, it usually floods. I've seen it flood no less than a dozen times since I moved in about 7 years ago. So with the development of that property back there, it raises two concerns for me. One, of improper drainage, which could then flood my property. And also, sorry, can't think of the word I want to use. Potential flooding issues, and also the drainage from the development washing down in there and then exasperating that much worse. That drains down towards the intersection of Pyramid Highway and Eagle Canyon. And that intersection has been flooded multiple times because there's just not enough drainage in that area. So that backs up, and then I risk flooding in my backyard. So I was hoping I could get some questions answered. I know this is a public comment issue, but is there any way that we could potentially address that, or?
At this point in time, that would come up if the commissioners had questions coming back to either you or the presenters.
Okay.
Okay?
So I've only got a minute left. I've heard that the project is going to be an assisted living neighborhood, which I think is great for that area, but not at the risk of basically flooding my house out or building right back up to my back door, basically. I think that's all I've got, so thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, is there any more public comment at this time, either in chambers or via Zoom?
I have no further public comment in chambers or on Zoom.
All right, hearing no public comment, at this time I bring it back to the commissioners for questions, either of staff, applicant, or a member of the public. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Seville?
Yes, this question is for staff. If you could, for the edification of everyone in the room, talk about what abandonment means, as well as the mitigating concerns about that there can't be any negative impact on residents if there is diversion of ground to cause a possible flooding incident, and then maybe the applicant could address that as well.
This is Julie Olander of Planning and Building. So the abandonment is for a roadway easement that's never been developed. So and it really wouldn't address the flooding. However, the tentative map that you approved previously, that would address any kind of flooding on that property. So they have to make sure that any kind of diversion of water is not going to cross property lines, and so the neighbors will not get flooded. I'm not quite sure what he was speaking of the roadway. There is, like I say, that Washoe County piece that goes down, and that's part of the Spanish Springs detention. That's sort of, my understanding is more of a space so that water can flow down that area. So I'm not clear totally on what he was speaking to. I'll try to talk to him after the meeting and see if we can clarify that. But the abandonment itself is not going to address flooding. However, the tentative map would. And all you're doing is abandoning an undeveloped roadway that's, if you walked out there, you wouldn't even know was there. It's only on a map. And that roadway is now no longer now makes any sense with the tentative map that was approved and where the lots are going to be located.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any further questions? Yes, Commissioner Flick.
Yes, Chairman.
Commissioner Flick, put your microphone too. Thank you.
Okay. Question, we issued a special use permit for a project, is that correct?
This is Julie Oland of Planning and Building again. So the special use permit, there was a special use permit, and I believe that was for grading, and then there's a tentative map. So it was two applications, and you heard both of them, or this board heard both of them.
So I'm assuming that if we took the dedication, we were probably going to try to channel the runoff down the street instead of where it's at now. If we abandon it, are there any conditions to the development to handle the water that the gentleman indicated to us?
Julie Olander through the chair, again, that is what the tentative map would address. And I do want to correct myself. It wasn't for a grading, it was to allow for the continuum of care. The special use permit was for the continuum of care, and the tentative map was to create the lots. So the conditions of approval in the tentative map will address any kind of flooding issues on the property. So the lots cannot be created in a way that would create water to cross property lines into neighboring properties. So that would, and they would address any kind of existing flooding on those two parcels, so that it's possible currently right now there's flooding out there because those parcels don't have any kind of established grading, established flood mitigation. And so with the development of these parcels, then the property owner will have to address that.
Well, would they be required to improve this drainage ditch?
So the drainage ditch that I can maybe put that slide back up, that's not their drainage ditch, that's Washoe County. And that is Washoe County property, and that connects farther up north to the Spanish Springs detention. So I'm not sure where the drainage, where the flooding is going on that property. However, if it's going on either one of these parcels where they're proposing to abandon, and maybe go one back, I think. Oops. Okay. One more, sorry. Go one more. There. Okay. So the two that have APN numbers on it, 532 and 032, 05 and 16, those are owned by the applicant that's asking for the abandonment, and also has the approved special use permit and tentative map. And that happened previously. The middle parcel that I have labeled as Washoe County parcel, if you went further north up, you would see that goes to the Spanish Springs detention basin. So I'm not sure this gentleman that just spoke where the flooding is what parcel it's coming off of. It's possible he could not, it can't be identified at this point. However, with the special use, for the permit for the cottages, which was a special use permit and a tentative map, the conditions and approval in that approved map will address any kind of flooding issues. The abandonment that's before you right now really doesn't have the mechanism to do that. All it's asking to you folks to do today is to abandon to a roadway that's on the map, and that you can't really even see. You can sort of see a faint line, and I tried to figure out if that's it, but I wasn't willing to identify it exactly because I'm not sure if it's that. It could just be something that someone drove across that road on, so I'm not a land surveyor. I wasn't going to go there. But anyway, that's the proximate location of the two abandonments. But the flooding should be addressed in the tentative map that was already approved. That's where you're going to see that's where they're going to come in and move dirt and put in drainage ways and so forth. And I don't know if the applicant can speak to that a little bit more, but I think he can. He's an engineer, or no, maybe he's, I know about you, Lance.
I'm not, but
okay, I didn't think so.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mike Evans with Silverado Homes. And I think the waters are a little bit muddied with the gentleman that came up and asked the question. So back in April of 2022, this board or this commission approved our SUP for our continuum of care cottage, which Julie showed on the map where you saw the houses placed on those parcels. And when that tentative map was approved, we're also going through a process of doing final mapping on the project. And in the final mapping process, we have to submit final civil engineering prints that will address sanitary sewer, water, and storm drainage. Storm drainage being related to any potential flooding. So we'll be required through the approval of our final map and our prints to take care of the water that's created from our parcels and our improvement correctly so that it doesn't negatively affect any other neighbor. If that ditch is flooding, that ditch is a Washoe County storm drain structure, and I'm not saying that it didn't flood, but I believe like the hydrology that it was engineered to should be able to handle the waters that it's receiving. So if there's a flooding issue, one thing is to identify what's causing it, and it's my general guess that it would be a maintenance issue on that ditch, and that's something certainly that can be solved in the future. When we look at that map, you know, it looks like a subdivision, but it is a subdivision for elderly people, continuum of care. And we have private roadways in there, if you remember from when it was approved before, so there's no need for a public roadway. So having a public roadway offer of dedication on that property no longer makes sense based on the SUP approval that those roads will be private. So really when it comes to what we're asking is we're asking to abandon the public offering of right-of-way that was done 15 years ago, which made sense prior to us bringing our SUP proposal forward, which shows that now the roadways in the gated community are going to be private. It's just, you're mixing apples and oranges. It's private roads now, not public, so we need to get rid of the offer of dedication for a public roadway.
Thank you.
Commissioners, do we have any further questions at this time? If we have no further questions at this time, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commissioners for either further discussion or a motion.
All right, Commissioner Lazarewski, I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and the information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission approve abandonment case number WAB 23-0001 for Silverado Homes with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all three findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code Section 110.806.20.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a second, ladies and gentlemen?
Rob, I'll second it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a first and a second. Before we vote, is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstains? Thank you. Motion passes. And of course, we have continuing item 10B and 10C. So we are moving on to item 10D. Secretary Lloyd, if you would, please.
Wonderful. I don't know what I did. Can you hear me?
You broke it.
Oh, boy.
This is special use permit case number WSUP 230003 for hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a special use permit for construction of a 5-mile-long, 345 kV gen tie line connecting the Prana substation to the Fort Sage substation, which is a utility service use type. The applicant is also requesting to waive all landscaping requirements and to vary the maximum height of 35 feet to allow for structures of 150 feet in height. The project meets the standard for a project of regional significance because it entails construction of a transmission line that carries 60 kV or more. It will require approval by the regional planning authorities before any approval at the county level would take effect. This project also requires amendments to the regional utility corridor map to identify the location of the new transmission line. The amendments must be sponsored by the Board of County Commissioners and approved by the Truckee Meadow Regional Planning Authorities. This project will need to comply with all federal and state approvals before any approval at the county level would take effect. Representing Washoe County in this matter is Planner Kat Oakley.
Thank you, Kat. One moment, of course. I need to reach out to all commissioners and find out if there's any disclosures.
This is Rob. I have a disclosure. After the last meeting that we had, I thought that this company was done, and I had a conversation with them about some possible land use and investments out in that area. Nothing has materialized. We don't have any agreement, and none of anything that we talked about will affect my fair and objective judgment on this.
Commissioner Pierce, can you be a little more specific about your conversations and about, you kind of mentioned the land use?
Yeah, I was looking for an investment out in the area, and I proposed a couple of properties to them, but there was no access to them, and they were not favorable to the project.
Okay, so you're saying that you have no intention of acquiring land out in that area, and
Not
entering into
anywhere
some sort
near,
of?
not anywhere near there. I was looking for an investment out in that area.
Okay.
And I still am looking for an investment, but not near their solar plant, just
And
out.
so you have no anticipated business relationship
No.
with Prana Solar?
None.
All right, thank you.
And since the agenda came out, I would just like to add that we have had no contact at all.
Thank you. We'll open the public hearing. Ms. Oakley, please.
Kat Oakley, Washoe County Planning. So as Trevor said, the case before you now is a special use permit for the Prana transmission line. The project site is located approximately 5 miles west of Flanagan, and it runs between approximately the intersection of Calveda Road and Rainbow Road to the Fort Sage substation along Rainbow Road on many, many parcels that are listed there for you. It falls within the high desert area plan, and the entire area is zoned general rural. Surrounding parcels are generally private and undeveloped, or in the case of the area down there around the Fort Sage substation, developed with solar projects. The request is for a utility services use type for that 345 kilovolt generation tie transmission line connecting the substation that you heard at last month's hearing to the existing Fort Sage substation. They are also requesting to vary the maximum height, which in the general rural zone is 35 feet, and asking to waive all of the landscaping requirements. Some background on the parcels in the area. So here is the overhead view of it. North, in this case, is to the right. The transmission line is proposed to fall within some public and private utility easements along Rainbow Road between Calveda Way and the Fort Sage substation. The area is generally vegetated with brush or sparsely vegetated and is flat. So to go into the details a bit, as I said, they are requesting to vary the maximum height to allow structures up to 150 feet in height. Specifically, they are making this request to accommodate potential height in the Fort Sage substation area due to existing infrastructure there. So there are many transmission lines in that area, and there are regulations about how far those things have to be from each other. I know that's in very non-technical terms, but that is the reason for this request, is specifically in that substation area. As part of this, the Board of County Commissioners has to initiate a request to the Regional Planning Commission to amend the regional utility site and corridor map to reflect the location of this transmission line. Transmission lines have to fall within a utility corridor, and there is not one there currently, so that's why this will go to the County Commission to initiate that request. So the pathway forward for this project, if you all chose to approve it, would be to the BCC for that initiation, and then to the Regional Planning Commission for a conformancy review. To go into our development code, parking for utility services use type is determined during the review process. In this case, staff has determined that no parking will be necessary. This is a transmission line. There's no manned facility. There are no enclosed structures, so parking wouldn't be necessary. In terms of grading, the grading will be confined to the tower foundation areas and will not trigger major grading standards or thresholds, according to the information provided by the applicant. So the final grading will be assessed at the building permit stage. As I said, they are requesting to waive all landscaping standards in Article 412. There is required landscaping for the utility services use type. In this case, staff is supportive of not requiring formal landscaping around transmission line towers, as it would not provide effective shielding. It would not be characteristic of the area. Now for some potential impacts. There's information on wildlife provided in the staff report, and many comments from NDOW. So this Gentile line will run through core and priority sage-grouse habitat per the NDOW, the Nevada Department of Wildlife Management maps. These are not categories tied to any federal listing or state protected status or anything like that. What this is a management program that NDOW has to support the sage grouse population and prevent that sort of listing. So the core habitat is what they consider to be the most important to preserve, priority next, and then general is just where the species can be found. With conversations with NDOW, they recommended a couple of conditions to mitigate the impacts of this transmission line. As you can see, the Fort Sage substation, which exists, is in the core habitat. So any transmission line that ran to that substation would go through this habitat. Two conditions of mitigation are proposed. One, to limit construction, to not allow it during the sage-grouse lecking season. And then two, to install anti-perch devices and deterrents on the transmission line poles to decrease predation. So these are the conditions of approval to mitigate potential impacts on sage-grouse. Next, mule deer. NDOW considers them a declining species of concern. Again, this is not a federal listing or categorization, but is an indication of NDOW's concern about the trends of this species and an indication of the need to protect it. The map there shows some crucial winter range that the southern portion of the transmission line will run through. Again, the Fort Sage substation is in that range. And in fact, that whole area where the line runs has some existing solar development, so that overlap is largely in the developed area. NDOW did not recommend any conditions of approval for mule deer. There are two Nevada protected species that have potential range in this area. First, the pronghorn antelope, and second, the dark and pale kangaroo mice. This site, the transmission line, does not fall within critical pronghorn antelope habitat, and no recommended conditions of approval are included. There is potential habitat for the pale and dark kangaroo mice, but the ground disturbance is limited to the area of the towers, and so no conditions of approval are recommended. Lastly, cultural resources. An archaeological survey was done prior to the application submittal. Several artifact scatters were found, and one has the potential to be listed in the National Registry of Historic Places. What that means is that there are a couple of things that can trigger that, but in this case, there's this site, this scatter, which is mapped there, outlined in red, has potential to provide information on chronology, history, and that sort of thing in this region. Based on the recommendations of the archaeological report included in the application, staff has recommended condition 1N to protect that artifact scatter, and no comments on this were received from any of the tribes that we work with or from the State Historic Preservation Office. 26 agencies reviewed this and several provided conditions and comments, which you saw. Notice was provided to 180 unique property owners within 750 feet of this transmission corridor. Staff can make all 5 findings to recommend approval, and I've got a motion for you consistent with that recommendation of approval with conditions, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kat. Do we have anything at this time, presentation from the applicant?
I believe they are available on Zoom to answer any questions, but do not have a presentation.
All right, thank you. At this time, we'd like to open it up for, is there any public comment, either in chambers, via Zoom, or I believe we've received some emails that you'd like to make note of?
Go ahead and approach the podium. You had your hand up first, sir. And when you're done, please. Okay. Ladies first.
Go ahead. Tiny person.
Hold on a moment. She's coming down. Thank you. And just state your full name for the record, please.
My name is Pamela Flynn. I do own some
property out in that area. I received this notice. Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. I have a couple of concerns. I know you cannot answer questions. My concern is the plat map that has been shown to us is not clear. It might be clearer if we all in that area received a copy of it. I know we received APN numbers, but I do not have access to the county's APN number showing the plat map. So my clarity on how this line will run and how close it may come to my property, I'm unclear with. The second issue is, along with these same lines, are these new transmission lines running parallel with what is existing? The existing transmission lines are higher than 150 feet, and they're requesting to increase the height from 35 to 150 feet. I'm not clear where these lines are going to be running. The other concern I have is that they are requesting not to mitigate any of the landscaping, and I know it's desert land, I get that, but the previous contractor, when they put in the solar panels, part of their obligation was to keep Fort Sage Road graded and make it comfortable for the residents out there to traverse back and forth from the Doyle area out to their homes. This was not done quite as well as we had all hoped. So with that in mind, when we talk about not mitigating landscape after they've come in and put up these lines, we have some concerns. That's pretty much it. Thank you. Any questions? You have a question for me?
We can't at this time.
Thank you so much.
I have Ayla Peacock in Chambers, make public comment. Please state your name for the record. Also, she did email us, and I did forward it to the commissioners, and it is posted on the website.
Hello, my name is Alla Peacock, ALLAPEACOCK, and I just want to say we already have existing power lines right down the street, and there's absolutely no good reason to put another huge transmission lines next to it. The area we live on is a fire danger zone, so all these huge power lines will turn out deadly for the people in case a fire does break down. The owner of these transmission lines is not going to save us. He will not come and save us. So we have children, animals, and a lot of people living on this Rainbow Road, and new transmission lines are dangerous for us. Rainbow Road is the most populated street in our neighborhood. What the presentation lady said is wrong. This area is populated. Safety of people and children should be #1 priority and concern. There is a lot of land that is completely unoccupied farther away from Rainbow Road. So please put this project farther away from the people and children. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Tatiana Kigolera in Chambers. Oh, Leva, thank you. Please state your full name for the record.
Hi, my name is Tatiana. I'm living in this valley, and I will speak very simple. Usually huge project like that, this is for money and power. So somebody will build there this project and will have money and power. What we will get? We will get illnesses, sicknesses, and cancer. It is absolutely not fair for people who living there. We have children, we have animals, and everybody gonna be sick. So no for this project. Second reason, why these people, they have their own property. They have their houses. Why they don't want take this project and put on their property, close to their houses? Why they use our territory? What is the reason? This is actually very tricky project. You don't know what is the end of this transmission line. It's only beginning, start. What is going to be end of this transmission line? And we don't want any progress. We moved from city. We want enjoy our wildlife. We want sky, sun, wind, and sand. That's why we are there. We don't want progress at all. And the third reason, if America going to the war, so who is going to be target number one? Us. Because usually bombing start from the transmission line. So it's nobody survive over there. So no even chance for my kids survive there. So I say again, no, no, and no for this project. I'm not agree, I'm against, and I am disagree with this project. Thank you for patience.
Thank you.
I have Matt Vine in chambers. Please state your full name for the record.
Good evening, Council. My name is Matthew Vine. A couple things with this project. So we were just notified a week ago about this. I didn't even realize that there were meetings last year. I'm sure it's been planned for a long time. But I know there can't be comments, so I just wrote a couple notes to be able to share. I'd like to voice some of my concerns for possibly adjusting conditions of approval with this solar project. We live in a western frontier that's mostly governed, protected, and respected by the neighborhood this proposed project is said to run through. With that being said, I'm not here to protest nor disregard the need for industrial growth, but respecting our lands and hearing our concerns is why I'm here today. Last year's solar project from McCarthy put an enormous amount of stress and financial burden on our vehicles, equipment, due to a lack of care for the county road, creating hazardous conditions with vehicles getting ran off the road and how dangerous the roads became. Equipment suffering became extremely abused and costly repairs that we all had to endure. We have people, including me, who commute daily on Fish Springs, to just be notified a couple days ago of this project being planned. This information needed to be brought forth to help them understand how to operate more efficiently and help ease the burden on the locals that these projects affect. Most of my road concerns can all be avoided if quality, competency, and project professionalism is held accountable. We need road base added, road crown-trained heavy machinery operators scheduled for this project, and more adequate attention brought to the safety of these traveled roads if we expect another industrial boom of traffic. Due diligence is practiced with good business, and good business is practiced by respecting the communities we all work in. So with that being said, I ask that you could all take this into consideration for the terms and condition. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Niall Wilson Thomas in chambers. Please state your full name for the record.
Hello, my name is Niall Wilson Thomas. I'm representing my family. We own several parcels out in Honey Lake Valley, a couple on the Nevada side and a few on the California side. Personally, in the past, since 2017, we've been traveling out there to our parcels to visit. What started out as visits have now come into long-standing staycations, you know, for a few days at a time to most notably weeks at a time in the past year. And we always enjoy ourselves out there. But for the past year and a half, us two, we've noticed, specifically my household, have noticed tire altering, axle altering grooves in the road from tractors that are 500, 600 times the size of my car. And on top of that, I've contacted Lawson County Public Works Department. His name's Jeff. He's the division director over there. He didn't even know those projects from McCarthy were going on until I gave him a call. And he got some of the neighbors along both Hackstaff Road and the California half of Fish Springs Road, which is considered Fort Sage Road when it comes to the border. And that's right about the border is where we started to see trash and refuse from the contractor crew that I'm sure was McCarthy and third-party contractors were paid to come through and deliberately throw their stuff out the window for months at a time. When I contacted Jeff over at Lawson County Public Works, he basically said the most we can do is tell them that they need to use the Nevada roads if they're Nevada Energy, and we can't really do much more than write them tickets if they're disobeying the law. But seeing as how that was their loophole, was taking the 395 freeway into California dirt tracks, They chose not to go through the reservation. On top of that, I know that Fort Sage is an archaeological hotspot. Since 2018, the base along the mountain there on Turtlehead Mountain has numerous archaeological digs that have gone on from the University of Berkeley. I didn't know that the northeastern part of the dead cow seabed had artifacts, but that looks like it would be ideal to contact UC Berkeley as well if there's anything archaeologically rich there. Anyway, my name is Noah Wilson Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Mike Maurer in Chambers. Please state your name for the record.
Hello, name's Mike Maurer. My concerns is they say there's no issues with migrational paths and stuff for antelope and sage grouse. Where they put the solar grid, that was sage grouse area and the migratory paths that the antelope also followed. Now they're displaced and we don't have them in our valley like we used to. This is causing a major impact, and I think you guys should have them do a full study on migratory paths and protect our wildlife out there, because it's a very big issue. Because we have wild cattle, horses, and the antelope, and lots of other things that are endangered. I think they should be protected. But thank you.
Thank you.
I have Rhett McBride in Chambers. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Rhett McBride. I'm new to the area, didn't deal with the current or existing solar project and all of the stuff that went with it. But the last 2 months, 3 months now, Rainbow Road has been essentially impassable. And they're talking about putting a rather large fire risk out there, 5 miles from the county maintained road on a privately maintained road. The fire department listed in their planning documents is volunteer and not staffed. It's in another state. And there's no way any of the fire trucks that they've got there will make it out that road at least 3 months out of the year. Other than that, I don't have an issue with the project going in. It's going to be out by the train tracks. I can hear the trains, but I can't see them at that location. The transmission line going down exactly that road, it makes sense because of an existing telephone line, but the existing telephone line is intermittent boxes sticking out of the ground. There's another road that goes to the other corner of the project that has no residents on it except for at one end, and that might be a better path, being that it has less disruption and is closer to the existing transmission lines across the valley. Mostly my concern is with fire. I deal with large lithium batteries as part of my work. I deal with the buses here in town. The fire department there in Doyle is not equipped to handle multi-megawatt hour lithium batteries if they catch on fire. Fire suppression technique is flood with water until cold. There's not enough water in that area to do that. The road would not allow enough water to be transported, but that's all I've got.
Thank you.
I have no further comment in Chambers, nor do I have any comment on Zoom.
All right, thank you. Then at that point, we will close public comment and bring it back to the commission for questions of either staff, applicant, or members of the public. Yes, Commissioner.
Commissioner Phillips, this is a question for staff. As a result of this sort of adding something new to me, I spent hours researching the impact of electric lines and transport of lines on the land surrounding it. Probably spent a whole day on that. Are there any properties that this crosses near within 700 feet where there is a domicile?
Cat Oakley, Washoe County Planning. From my look on the Washoe County Regional Mapping System, there is one legally established dwelling in the adjacent parcels, but I am not certain whether or not it is within 700 feet. And that is, again, specifically based off of the assessor's data, not speaking to any other developments that might be out there. I could check real quickly, but I don't have the answer off the top of my head.
Then I will continue with this. Is there any other place that these lines can be placed that do not affect neighborhoods?
I would direct you to speak to the applicant about their rationale for selecting the site. From my understanding, it is based off of a number of factors, including easements, the carrying capacity of the existing lines in the area, regulations regarding the distance between transmission lines. But again, the applicant would likely have the most clear technical information on that subject.
Are they available?
Yeah. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. This is Brent Moore with Sierra Geotech. The reason we chose Rainbow Way is because it is a direct line straight to Fort Sage substation. The other reason we chose it is because it has a utility easement that's adequate to support the generation tie line. The other reason we chose it is because our transmission engineers, electrical engineers, found that they can design a system that meets all the safety requirements of national and state electric line requirements on that corridor. And just to kind of respond to some of the other public comments, you know, we have done biological studies for wildlife, biological studies for botany to ensure that we don't have any impacts, and we've done it both under the California Environmental Quality Act, and we also did it under UEPA, Utility Environmental Protection Act. And in both cases, both on the California side and the Nevada side, there were findings of no significant impacts to wildlife or to botanical resources. We've also done those cultural studies, and there's no impact. We've also contacted all fire departments, the one at the Army Depot, the Doyle, and then I can't recall, the Carson, in Carson City, there's a Bureau of Land Management fire unit, and then there's another volunteer fire department just a little south in Nevada. We've contacted them all. We've prepared a fire management plan for the generation tie line. Those fire management plans have been shared and coordinated with all the fire marshals within the region. And so, you know, I think, you know, fire-wise, it's mitigated. When it comes to the roadway, we also have a roadway management plan that we've entered into with Lassen County, and we've also entered into with the Public Works Department in Washoe County. And we will also be making the Rainbow Way, which is a private road, which, as one of the comments, you know, was that it's not very accessible. It is pretty treacherous, particularly at this time of year. You better have a really good four-wheel drive. But we will be improving it so that it'll be an all-weather surface so that we could access regardless of, you know, whether it's, you know, rain and snow, mud, et cetera, because we'll have a gravel base on it in the future, which currently none of the property owners have seen fit to improve that access easement into their properties. They've pretty much just left it be a, you know, dirt rutted road. So that will be a benefit to the public. And And then, and again, we meet all safety requirements concerning the electrical lines. And, I don't believe there's any valid health issue that can be documented concerning that line relative to the easement. And then, and in addition to that easement, the county also has, Kat, I think you could refer to this, but I think the setback from the easement is 200 feet. So you've got the 60-foot wide easement, then you got 200 feet each side of that before you could put anything in as far as a structure. So it gives us, quite a bit of clearance from the line.
Follow up.
All right, thank you very much.
I have
Pat?
a follow-up
Okay.
question. Were there any other locations of the transmission line even considered?
Yeah, we looked at Cal Neva Road, which is in the state of California. So we looked at that as a route going straight down Cal Neva Road. And then it would, we talked with Plumas Sierra Rural Electric Cooperative, who also has a planned interconnection line between Herlong and Fort Sage substations. So one of the thoughts is that we would double up on that line, running our 345 kV on top of their 120 kV. But Plumas Sierra Rural Electric Cooperative has been very slow at developing their interconnection. But we've also discussed using their right-of-way that they've acquired both on BLM land and as well as on public right-of-ways such as Fort Sage Road. But it takes us, it makes us go a little bit longer going that direction than it would be to run it straight down Rainbow right from the facility.
Thank you, Commissioners. Any further questions at this time? Commissioner Lazare?
Commissioner Lazarski, question for staff. So the comments that were received from NDOW concerning the sage grouse specifically recommended perch deterrents to dissuade predatory birds that would hunt the sage grouse. Was there any comment or discussion of flight diverters?
Oakley, Washoe County Planning, there was not, it wasn't a suggestion that they proposed or that I proposed either.
Okay, so the context is that there's two impacts that transmission lines can have on grouse. One is hosting the birds that hunt them, which the perch diverters would address, but also the sage grouse can they fly real fast and they don't look forward that carefully and they can rack themselves into the lines, and the flight diverters can address that. So I would just ask that the applicant consider that going forward, whether that might be appropriate.
Yeah, we would accept that as just added as an additional condition.
That works for me.
Commissioners, any further questions at this time? As Vice Chair Vilcek.
Thank you, Chair Donchek. With regards to the natural resource management and the archaeological survey, I know you did not receive comment back, but if there's a potential for a registry, what is the plan to ensure that there is no degradation of that archaeological site or prehistoric site?
Oakley, Washoe County Planning, the condition of approval based off of that archaeological report specifically recommends avoiding the area if possible, and if it's not possible, having a professional archaeologist catalog artifacts found in that area. That is, at this point, the extent of the mitigation proposed. This project is the ground disturbance will be limited to the tower areas, so hopefully whatever overlap there is with this artifact scatter will be limited in scope, and whatever area there is, an archaeologist would be required to survey and process that area.
If possible, I'd like the applicant to consider even with it, in addition to the consultation of a professional archaeologist, if these are tribal, that a tribal archaeologist is also brought into the conversation.
Of course.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any further questions at this time?
Chair Donchik, I have the owner Charles Hooper on Zoom with his hand raised.
He's an applicant.
Oh, the applicant? Is the applicant?
It's the owner. Charles, if you'd like to address the board, please unmute and state your name for the record.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Charles Hooper. I'm currently the landowner in that area. I first want to thank the Washoe County Planning Commission for taking this project into consideration. My family has had a presence in the Honey Lake Valley for over 70 years, so we've been traveling out to that area ever since I was a Nevada resident in the 1960s. And I have a special feeling toward Nevada. I'm a graduate of Worcester High School in 1971, so I've maintained many relationships in the Reno area. So my father, Harry Hooper, purchased this land shortly after World War II. I do want to ensure the Washoe County Planning Commission that the people that I've been working with, hence Brent Moore with Stantec and Sean Vermurray, that they've taken much consideration for environmental concerns and have spent hours and basically the past 4 years in carefully and considerately developing this project in an environmental friendly way, with the idea of preserving the environment, wildlife, and basically any life forms out there. Careful consideration has been taken into account. And I just think, in conclusion, that this project, I think, would be valuable for Northern Nevada in bringing renewable energy into the state of Nevada and helping fulfill Nevada's goal of 100% renewable energy in the near future. And that's my conclusion. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity to address the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Hooper. At this point, do the commissioners have any further questions for Mr. Hooper at this time? Okay, then at this point, I would close the public hearing. I bring it back to the commission for either further discussion within the commission or call for a motion.
Excuse me. Could I possibly have about 2 minutes?
I'm sorry, sir, we've just closed public comment.
Well, I don't like the fact that you had your project guy that's running the project speak after.
Sir, public comment is over.
Commissioner Lazarewski, I just wanted to note in our discussion amongst the board that, well, a lot of issues have been brought forward, and I appreciate the community from up there making the trip down here to talk to us about what you guys see out there, because obviously, for the most part, we don't make it to that corner of the county that much. Except for those who live there. But that what's before us right now is just the transmission line. It's not the question of the larger solar project or the battery storage or the road maintenance agreement for those parts of the projects. So, so that I think that from what I've seen, the staff has done a really good job in gathering comment from the relevant agencies, and that we do have some addressing of the environmental aspects. As much as staff could get from NDOW in terms of their comments and their recommendations on conditions, we have here recorded, and if there's more that could have been done by NDOW, that's not the county's issue. That's what we have before us. It looks to me like a pretty reasonable and responsible proposal for the tie line to an approved power plant tying into an existing substation that has an open bay that at some point there's going to be a transmission line tying into. With that, I'm prepared to make a motion if anybody else wants to comment first. All right. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and the information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission approve with the conditions, including the one added in discussion, the two added in discussion. The special use permit case number WSUP 23-0003 for Prana Renewables Energy LLC, with the amended conditions included in Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code, Section 110.810.30. I further move to vary the Development Code standard in Table 110.406.05.1 to allow structures up to 150 feet in height, and to waive the landscaping standards of Article 412 in the Washoe County Development Code.
Thank you, Commissioner Lizarewski. Do we have a second in that motion?
Commissioner Nelson will second.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. At this time, is there any further discussion?
Does that include the additional condition?
Yes, he did say that.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Thank you. With that, the motion carries. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
Madam Chair, I'd like to read the.
Yes, Secretary Lloyd.
All right. Most decisions rendered by the Planning Commission are appealable to the county, to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Planning Commission and you qualify as an aggrieved person or party, you may appeal in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is reduced to writing and filed with the Secretary of the Planning Commission and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and application fee.
Thank you, Secretary Lloyd. Moving along, we are on item 11, which is chair and commission items. These are non-action. Item 11A, future agenda items. Is there anything that the commissioners would like to add to a future agenda?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Secretary Lloyd.
If I may, for the future agenda for the July meeting, it falls on July 4th, and so we are proposing to move that to the 5th, which is a Wednesday.
Thank you, Secretary Lloyd. Any other agenda? Okay, no other agenda item. Moving right along to item 11B, request for information from staff. Does anyone in the commission have further requests for staff for the future? Hearing none, we're moving right along. Item 12 is directors and legal counsel items. Under 12A, do we have any report on previous planning commission items, Secretary?
Yes, I do. At the February 28th BCC meeting, the commission approved the RZA, that was the 800 RZA, that was on Bellhaven Drive, you may remember, in the southwest Truckee Meadows, to amend the property to allow for more MDR on 19 acres. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. And item 12B is legal information updates. Ms. Gustafson, do you have anything for us at this time?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
All right, thank you. Then at this end, we have one more public comment, item 13, and I remind everyone, as in the past, this is a 3 minutes, either on or off the agenda. Do we have any public comment, either in chamber or via Zoom, for this public comment?
I have no public comment in chambers or on Zoom.
All right, hearing that, we will close public comment. And ladies and gentlemen, I believe we are adjourned for the night. Thank you very much.